everyone. My name is Matt Nagel. I look after our worldwide media and entertainment, game tech, and consumer industries tech partner group at Amazon Web Services. Pleasure to be here with you today. Join me on stage. I have two of our colleagues from Lionsgate. So I'd like for both Gray and Akin to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll talk about how we're helping our customers to fast-track industry modernization with AWS Marketplace.
Gray Ainsworth. I look after our technical operations and delivery groups. That includes the transformation of the media as it is prepared for delivery to clients out. So that includes delivery, localization, mastering and remastering, asset management, those kinds of things.
Yeah. And Akin Salon, good afternoon, everybody. High noon. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Home Entertainment and Global Content Delivery. And what that means is basically, I get on the firing line for anything that doesn't go right. We actually try to make everything go right. And for us, it is, at the end of the day, it's just about making sure that we can support our sales. So we touch every piece of content that comes in and goes out for monetization.
Great. Well, thank you both for being here. Really decided to share the latest around what our customers and partners are doing with AWS Marketplace. You've heard a lot from our keynote presentations around the way that we're innovating, developing new technology, which includes the AWS Marketplace. The AWS Marketplace is a service. It's a product of AWS where it has its own product roadmap. It's evolved with our customers, contemplating how do we make it easy for our customers, the buyers of software, as well as the sellers of software, the partners, to find one another and smooth out the transaction procurement process. So for today's discussion, we'll discuss a few different topics. I want to give you a bit of background about what we're seeing in the domain, what are the challenges our customers face, why are we here today, and how Marketplace can help you. I'd like to talk a bit about what we're also seeing in industry lines of business. Many of our customers are now contemplating modernizing, moving key workloads, use cases to the cloud outside of the core IT domain. What Lionsgate are doing, what many of our industry partners are doing, are contemplating those line of business, industry-specific workloads, and we'll talk about how Marketplace can support that as well. We'll give some time to Gray and Akin to talk about their experience. The key word I'd like for you all to keep in mind here, and this is what they'll reiterate, is it's a journey. There are many phases towards moving, modernizing, building up workloads in the cloud, building up your own core native workloads, integrating partner solutions into the value chain. So that journey will be a key theme we'll want to emphasize. We'll talk about how Marketplace can support you in that journey. Lastly, we'll talk about next steps. Happy to open up for questions at the end of the presentation as well. So let's talk a bit about what we're seeing in the domain. What are the challenges our customers are facing? Given all the innovation that we bring to all of you at events like reInvent, we're constantly focused on understanding the key challenges, the primary challenges facing you as customers, buyers of software, as well as sellers of software, continuing to innovate. And what we found is the sheer depth, the breadth, the pace of innovation has created a lot of cloud development. It's created a lot of cloud workloads that our customers are now having to rationalize. And so for a customer like Lionsgate, they're developing their own core native applications, using our core services to fulfill various parts of their value chain, especially in industry lines of business, the niche workloads, the specialization required to develop content, move it to the cloud, to create a supply chain strategy, to then stream it and then broadcast it, to create a monetization strategy in media and entertainment. It really requires a lot of specialized expertise, and that's where our partners develop their software. What that means is for any customer at the enterprise level, you've got a lot of software to pay attention to. A lot of licenses, a lot of renewals, a lot of vendor contracting. That sheer complexity, the overhead, is distracting our customers from what is their core competency, differentiating and adding value for their business. And so what we see is at an aggregate level, on average, an enterprise customer of ours is managing somewhere over 600 different software as a service applications within their business. Core IT applications for DevOps, containers, security, as well as line of business applications. Again, managing and modernizing various industry line of business workloads. It's driving a tremendous amount of spend on average, nearly $250 million spent with software as a service applications. Over 300 of those applications, those licenses are up for renewal every year. So this is a non-trivial opportunity for us to help to innovate using the marketplace. How do we simplify the way in which our customers rationalize all of the various spending that's occurring? Having a better insight into where are these licenses, where are these software applications being used? Do we have the right perspective around how best to utilize those licenses and develop a better approach towards negotiating and better using software to manage those enterprise needs? This is especially true now in industry lines of business. What we find in working with our industry analysts and talking with customers, nearly 2/3 of all software spending is being driven not within IT, but by other parts of the enterprise. Marketing, finance, operations, in immediate space, content development, supply chain distribution. So it ends up being a lot of demand for additional software for our IT teams at our customers to manage those applications. There's merit to that. So by buying software, you develop and you use that external expertise, that software that enables your team to focus on their core competencies. So you're gaining the rich functional expertise from your third-party partners. You're able to move faster, innovate more on behalf of your customers, and then you're empowering your own developers, your own IT teams, your own analysts to focus on their core competency rather than reinventing the wheel. And so that's where we want to make it easy for our partners to find customers. So what do we hear from customers? A lot of software being built, a lot of software being bought. It's costly. It's complex, inefficient to manage procurement, understanding where are we in the various stages of renewals, what are all the end user licensing agreements that a customer like Lionsgate has to manage to run their business efficiently. And so just being able to rationalize and simplify the way that our customers can centralize, unify all of the software that they manage. This is why we're passionate about bringing AWS Marketplace, both to our customers who need to find the software to meet their needs, as well as for our partners, the sellers of software that ought to contemplate that this is the way their customers are thinking about things, that we need to find a way to continue to simplify, innovate on behalf of our customers. So it's a shared endeavor. Partners working with AWS, working with our customers to ensure that we're always working to reduce inefficiencies, reduce waste, and improve governance around all the software being used. AWS Marketplace has been around for over 10 years now. So it's really meant to accelerate the deployment of software, making it easier for the sellers of software applications to list that, to make it available to our customers, and then ultimately for our customers to realize the value of using that software. As we talked about just a moment ago, just given the sheer volume of software applications that our customers need to rationalize, it helps to create better visibility, a shared and centralized hub for understanding how are we doing on renewals, how are we doing around the usage of licenses. And so we have standardized end user licensing agreements, standardized statements of work that really help to simplify the way where our customers are working, the buyers of software work with the sellers of software, with our partners. The marketplace is a means for us to simplify that transaction between our customers. It's a means to reduce costs. So the more centralized, the more visibility, the better able you are internally to manage overall procurement, reducing wasteful time spent tracking down the various applications, all the various ways that these different lines of business are needing software to fulfill their various aspects of the enterprise business. So what we've done in collaboration with analysts like Forrester Research, talking with our customers, is to try to create an impact statement. How are we doing with the AWS Marketplace to make it easier for sellers to reach customers, to make it more efficient for customers to find the software, to make procurement more impactful, to reduce the effort to actually transact software in the cloud between customers and partners. Through our research, what we found, like with Forrester, is On average, customers find an over 500% increase, 550% in their return on investment. What that means is the more that they're buying software through the marketplace, the more effective they are in reducing costs, in realizing profitability, driving bottom line productivity for business growth. 66% reduction in procurement time. This is one of the key differentiators for us as our customer account teams are talking with our customers, is the ease of use, centralized and standardized end user licensing agreements. It's a means to make it simpler to fulfill, from the procurement standpoint, all of the various departments to meet their needs using software through the marketplace. And ultimately, 75% reduction in the time to onboard new vendors. We and my partner development team at AWS, we are prioritizing working with our technology partners to talk to them about why the marketplace is so important to our customers. The means through which we intend to enable them to reach more customers, to make it easier for them to deploy their software. So it's meant to support both buyers of software as well as sellers of software. Again, I want you all to keep in mind that there's a journey here. This all doesn't happen overnight, and it's important to be intentional, to be purposeful from an IT standpoint around what are the key priorities, developing cloud technology workloads in-house, what are the key buy decisions you need to make with software externally, and then thinking through how Marketplace can unlock the value as a part of that journey. We're seeing a lot of innovation now in industry lines of business. You're hearing a lot about that innovation, both at our partner kiosks in the exhibition hall, in our partner keynotes. And so what we see is that the marketplace is now fulfilling a part of that value chain with our industry partners. We have 19 different industry vertical categories available on the marketplace that help you as a buyer of software to curate and define the right solution to meet your need. This includes over 700 partner offerings or partners listing applications available on the marketplace, 1,800 plus transactable listings. So we're developing a great depth and breadth of capabilities. The catalog continues to grow, and our customers are asking us to grow it. They're thinking through how do they make it easier to meet their needs, and this is where we're seeing the growth of the marketplace drive to meet those needs. So just a bit of background about the marketplace, the reasons why it exists, how we're helping both customers, buyers of software, as well as the sellers to meet in the middle and to find more efficiency. Now let's drive these concepts home. Let's talk about the real world challenges that Lionsgate has faced. Let's talk about the journey that they have encountered, and keep in mind that the journey is ongoing, and that there will always be the next challenge, always the next roadmap item for them to address. So I'd like for both Gray and Aachen to talk a bit to you about their journey, how they contemplated the marketplace as a part of their software development strategy, lessons learned, problems encountered. So I want to encourage them to be transparent, candid with you about what worked well, things that didn't work well. We want to empower all of you as you're facing the same types of decisions. So with that, I'll turn it over to both of you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Again, nice to see everybody this afternoon. A little bit about Lionsgate's journey. First of all, we have a very extensive library of roughly 18,000 titles that's been accumulated over the last 25 years. It's been done through both film and television production that we do directly. It's been done through acquisitions, and it's also done through distributing other partners' titles. So over the years, this has built up tremendously, and during that time frame, we really went from a physical distribution world to a digital world. And over the last 5-6 years, it really began to expand in the digital world as technology got better, as bandwidth was getting better, as the Netflixes and the Apples really started coming online, and content was becoming more and more important and to be able to distribute. But what it also did is that it allowed us to say, you know what, we can distribute and manage our content and doing our global sales and distribution from a location. We didn't have to be in disparate locations anymore. But what that didn't do was create this problem that we had over this year of accumulating our IP, and those IP has a tremendous amount of assets associated with it, and I would say probably over 1 million assets that are in disparate locations, so it's decentralized. And what was happening is that our speed to market was happening faster and faster. And we have a very aggressive sales team, and that's the whole point, is that we want them to sell, because that's very important for our organization, and we needed to be able to keep up. And so platforms were beginning to spread and continue to open throughout, not just in the US, Canada, but worldwide. We were becoming a distributor of global content, directly from where we're located in Santa Monica. And while all this was maybe looking good on the surface, there was an undercurrent happening that was getting stronger and stronger. And we were running into a challenge in saying, how are we going to keep up with decentralized inventory, with speed of sales happening? This was a real challenge for us, and we needed to be able to take advantage of it.
So before we get into the specifics, how many people here are part of the media and entertainment space in any capacity versus outside? Okay, so quite a bit not. So while you're going to hear a very media and entertainment point of view and our journey today, it's probably not, it probably is still applicable to a lot of other industries, because you're dealing with assets, and you're dealing with the digitization of assets, and dealing with policies that sets you up within the cloud. So we'll try to keep it at that level and not go too deep into very specific media stuff. At the same time, we can't avoid it because we're a media company. So when we started to look at this and look at ourselves and the kind of an organization that Akin just described, we realized over time, the last 15 years in particular, for the media and entertainment space, we've gone through more change than we did in the first 100 years of its existence. In that content was produced differently, content is being distributed differently, content is being consumed differently, and it's being paid for differently. However, there are some specific challenges that we have run into for that entire 100 years that still exist today. Cost pressures of managing P&Ls within licensing content, and the amount of money and profit that you make from that is under significant strain over the last several years, because those models have changed so much. And at the same time, we are managing significant technological investment. Because the industry is changing so much, we moved from film to standard definition video, to high definition video, to file-based workflows, and now to the cloud. And so all of that investment does not stop. While we're also managing our service provider partners, and their problems are our problems. So managing their capacity and their investment and making sure that they're delivering the services that we need has been something that you have to manage. It just requires a lot of management. So all of that sort of presented itself, and we thought, is there an opportunity to confront some of those in this next technological leap that we're about to take, which we suspect is going to be a movement of our supply chain into the cloud? And can we sort of do that? So we took a look at ourselves and we said, well, today we're averaging about 31 days from order to delivery. And that's an average. Some of our product gets delivered to our customers within a few hours or a day. Others, it takes 6 months. It just depends on how much work that has to be done on that particular content to get it to be acceptable for delivery to our clients. And so that average is too long. The way the industry is moving today, we need to be far more opportunistic than we have been. In an AVOD world, which is an advertising video on demand business model, time on the platform matters, and so the faster you get it on the platform, the faster it starts generating revenue. So we needed to reduce that for sure. We were also 100% dependent on our partners, which was a choice we made, and by doing that, it solved a lot of problems that existed prior to that. There was singular accountability there, and they got to become experts on our library, and they had everything. But again, they had everything. And so it limited us from being as flexible as we wanted to be. So those are some things that we needed to address. If you go to the next slide, these really became what our goals were in this process.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we've got this problem. We now have to move forward, as Gray was talking about. And it was really modernizing our supply chain and say, what does that really mean at the end of the day? And this kind of goes back to what Matt was saying, is this build versus buy. What can we control? What do we need to take out of the hands of some of our partners so that we can dictate our path a little bit better? And so that was really important for us to consider. And this was also a time that when we looked at this a handful of years ago, it wasn't economically feasible. Mm-hmm. And so as time came through to the last year or year and a half or two, all roads were coming together and saying, here's an opportunity in time to where we can, speed is great, the technology is great, the economics are feasible, and now is it just the will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's basically right, is how do you enable sales but still tell a story where there will be an ROI at the end of the day, because it does require significant investment up front to begin the journey, at least for a company that has a lot of media, which are large files that are complex. So our goals were really to modernize that supply chain. We wanted to work in a slicker, faster, more efficient way that allowed us to interact with our service provider partners. That relationship is certainly going to continue, while also enabling us to be a little more self-deterministic in how we managed our deliveries to our customers. And we thought by moving that distribution supply chain to the cloud was the answer, and so that was our goal, was to move that. We ultimately wanted to create flexibility in the user experience. The users are not only defined as our customers, but also our internal operational people who are actually strategically managing that work to get the content manipulated into the flavors that they needed to be manipulated into, and ultimately delivered out to the clients. So we wanted them to have a better experience, as well as our partners, the service providers that we work with. There is a better way to interact than just writing a purchase order, writing out what we needed to do, having a bunch of calls with them, and hope for the best. So we really wanted to streamline our sales to servicing process. We looked at that, and it was pretty informal. Sales would make a deal, turn it over to us. They would tell us to do servicing based on, in ways that are very casual, I'll put it. They'd send a contract over and say, figure it out. They'd mention it in a meeting. It would just be emails and phone calls. So we really needed to routinize that. So we were getting all the information we needed captured systemically, because we thought that was going to unlock automation opportunities later once our assets were cleaned up.
You really don't want to allow for interpretation of what that sales order means, right? And that's kind of what was happening, particularly as we were beginning to expand our coverage in a global distribution and the types of deals that we were also making. So we were going through really uncharted waters with that undercurrent happening.
So we took a look at that. We launched some initiatives internally to get us started on this journey. We took a look at how those orders were coming into us from our sales teams, and we created a service order form to capture all that information. It's better than what we had. We're going to be able to iterate it off of time, but at least we're now capturing all the information in one place. And that form serves as the trigger to kick off all activity from a servicing perspective. We also realized we needed to make sure that we had, at least in our possession, our assets. Lionsgate's model in particular was we licensed to third-party distributors and licensees, and a lot of them had been making content on our behalf all throughout time, and Sometimes we were good at retrieving those copies, sometimes we weren't so good at retrieving those copies. We needed to get those in our possession so we could look at the complete bouquet of assets that existed on a title, and then we can plan strategies around that. And if we don't have it, we don't know. So we launched a proactive project to go out into the world and find all of our assets, particularly localized assets, assets that have been dubbed and subbed in multiple languages around the world. And then lastly, we needed to validate those assets, make sure that they're good enough. This is a very common problem in our world with large libraries that have been worked over periods of time with different points of view about what specifications are. And so we needed to create some standardization there and find where our quality line needed to be and make sure everything conformed to that.
Yeah, I would only add that with the digital transformation and the rights that were coming back to us actually made a lot of sense because, again, we could control it ourselves where we couldn't do that before in territory, right? So that was really important. And then the other reason that this is the thing we were focusing on distribution as part of our cloud strategy. And why were we doing that?
For flexibility and the delivery to our customers.
And making money.
Oh, and ultimately making money.
It's the money that...
I'm a cost center, you can tell.
Right, so it's about making the money. So that's why he focused on distribution initially as part of our cloud strategy. That's what monetizes, and this is what really helps both the quicker we can do this, getting to market, and as Gray alluded to a little while ago about the 31 days, and if we can cut that down to half, that's 15 more days of monetization of our content. That means a lot. So we have a top line benefit and then also looking at a bottom line benefit.
So we took a look at this in various buckets. Can you go back one for a second? I just want to make sure we didn't. Yeah, okay, fine. So we took a look at what best practices were along the way, and there were some definite lessons learned that we needed to understand and figure out, and they fell in these categories: financial, operational, and organizational.
Yeah, I think the first thing that we would want to do was creating this a pro forma. We did a 5-year pro forma on this, and it was real critical in being able to put that in front of our senior leadership and talk about this journey and why it was transformational and why we needed everybody to support it. And so we'll get into it in the next slide, but there was components that fed into that. And then you had a couple other things here.
Operationally, we needed to have really clear goals for ourselves. They can't be nebulous. It can't be our goal is to move everything into the cloud. We needed to break it down into consumable chunks. And that was really important to us. So we broke them down into activities that we set task forces on within the organization to fulfill those, which was we needed to decide, for instance, on what our strategy is for naming conventions of the files. The assets were coming from multiple sources, of which are service providers. They all had different naming conventions. Do we want to try to standardize that and move everything in and change them into something that we want to use? That led us on an entire journey to investigate that, where we came out with a completely different answer than we thought, which was we actually shouldn't care about file names in the media and entertainment space. We should rely on metadata. And metadata fields within a database that allows us to describe the assets. And file names are generated as whatever point in time and whatever use they are needed to put those together into them. Because what we were finding is we were getting file names that were just growing and growing and growing because they would keep throwing in attributes about the asset into that file name. So that's an example of having a very specific goal that really fleshed out a problem that we didn't anticipate until we got into that and started to understand that. So that was really important. And then organizationally, we created a steering committee, which was really important for us to keep us on track.
Yeah, I couldn't emphasize that more and the importance of it, where we have stakeholders as part of that steering committee from different departments. And we would meet Well, we still do. We meet on a monthly basis. We are talking about our journey, the progress that we've made, what's coming up next, what are the challenges that we're running into, and how are we tracking against our pro forma on the P&L. And we would also take that on a biannual basis and meet with senior leadership to discuss this is what's happening. And inevitably, you're going to run into challenges, and for us, this was building, from bottom up. So we hadn't had a cloud platform to do this. So everything along our journey is brand new. So we didn't have anything to really, what I would call pollute our minds any other way. It was just kind of a learning experience. And here we go, the proof of concept.
So we launched a proof of concept. We found that was really important for Lionsgate. We actually decided, all right, let's do a small version of this and learn about the cloud and what that's going to mean to Lionsgate, what the impact on us is going to be. This is where the AWS Marketplace and AWS support really came into play for us. We knew what we didn't know. Lionsgate did not have a cloud center of excellence. This is not something that we were leveraging outside of just managing some data in our IT group, but we weren't applying media best practices in the cloud at that time. So we reached out to AWS and said, look, we're starting this journey. How can you help? And they really did that for us. They managed this. Through the marketplace, they identified partners that we could interact with, and we interviewed some, and ultimately that's how we found our cloud asset management system, which is Atelier, who are still helping us manage our way through this today. But that was a really invaluable source. They also provided a lot of financial support for this. We had consultants that were covered as part of a special program where they subsidize help in learning about the migration of assets into the cloud, and we took advantage of that. Through that proof of concept, we really were able to bake that 5-year pro forma P&L that Akin was just talking about, and learn what we didn't know, which was really just as important as learning what we needed to know and did know as well. So that process also was helpful because they had a migration readiness assessment tool where they brought people in, and we went through a series of meetings and analysis where we had to understand how ready really were we to start migrating awful lot of media asset management, or a lot of media assets into the cloud. And that was a slap in the face in a way. I mean, we really sort of learned what we didn't know.
Well, this is where I call it truth serum, and you have to be willing to take the truth serum, look in the mirror, look at your blemishes, and say, this is what it is. How am I going to change this? How am I going to address this? And that was real important for us, and not only for myself and Gray, representing from an operational perspective, but also from our IT group. And that was, I think, eye-opening as well. And so we're looking at this and saying, okay, what are we going to invest? Because we're a pretty lean company, and we can't afford to be spinning our wheels on projects that are not going to bring any value. So we really have to believe in this. And I think that migration readiness assessment was truly, I think, both delivering some critique as well as inspiring us to be better. And I think that was really important. And also, the one other thing I would add here is that about finding the right partners that are going to go along with you on this journey. And Gray mentioned Atelier earlier, and they've been a fine partner, I think, better than what we could have expected. And they're going along this journey with us, which is really important because we're learning things.
The other reason why this was important is because it started to build a coalition within Lionsgate. Anybody that's part of a large organization knows there's a lot of voices at the table when you try to launch a technical project. You have to first sell it probably to non-technical people. at least in a company like Lionsgate we did. And we knew that this was going to get asked about within the organization. So we included the IT team to make sure that they didn't speak up against this. They weren't surprised and said, well, what are you talking about? We'll build this. We don't need to go out of house for this. The finance team, so when the budget starts to come around, it gets built and there's that investment that you need to make in this and what the long-term ROI is. They understood it and they could stand behind it. The sales teams we talked to also to make sure that they understood what the benefit of this was going to be for customers and their sales process and how this is going to enable sales. So we built a coalition before the ultimate decisions had to be made, and we couldn't have done that without the proof of concept that we were able to source through the marketplace.
This is what we call the ABC, always be closing. I'll try and let you guys figure out what movie that's from, and I'll tell you at the end. But it's ABC, always be closing. And we had to do this with conviction. If we believed in it, we needed to be closing all the time, selling this until everybody bought what we were selling. And what we were selling was genuine. And so I think for that, it was a good process for us to go through and engaging the organization to help them feel like they're part of the solution.
Yeah. So to summarize on the marketplace, for us anyway, the benefits were really consolidated purchasing and invoicing. We were able to just source our partners through AWS, so it all comes in on one invoice for us, and we don't have to manage multiple ones, and those spends count towards any commitments that we make with AWS as well. So that was a really important piece for us. Completely vetted partners. We know that the people we're going to source and interact through there already work in the AWS ecosystem, so we didn't have to go down that road as well. And we just, as we've illustrated a lot in the last 5-10 minutes, we got a lot of support and a lot of guidance from them and continue to in our journey as we continue to migrate our library into the cloud.
Yeah, I would just say with the vetted partners aspect, and we've made a business decision to say that, as we continue on our journey, we're only going to be partnering with those that are also doing a cloud journey or operating in the cloud. We can't afford to look backwards anymore and to legacy, systems and processes. Again, we've got to be convicted to our goals and not really let anything, get in our way in order to meet those goals, because again, we know this is transformational for the organization. And so, what's next for us as we continue? I call this the bookends. Production in the cloud. This is where all the movie magic is made, and then the archiving of those pristine assets. And so we've got to continue educating ourselves a little bit better on what those opportunities are. Work with different key stakeholders within the organization that are responsible for the filmmaking aspect of it, and so that we can actually bring those assets into our existing cloud, because that's going to allow us to operate with the single source assets, be much quicker in order to be able to monetize our content, because our windows for monetization continue to shrink throughout the industry. And so the faster we can take care of that means more dollars in the bank, and that means more profitability for our organization as well. And then archiving, of course, is we just need to make sure we have the pristine assets that we can always call upon. And then not only that, but it also helps value our IP better too. That we can count on it because we know where everything is at. If you look back at the very first slide that we had about decentralized inventory, well, it's not going to be decentralized anymore. It's all going to be in one place. So we know exactly what we have, where it is, and what sort of other components that kind of go along with the film.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Akin, really insightful. Enjoyed listening to all the stories. I've got a couple questions for you, but I don't want to monopolize all the time. If anyone in the audience has questions, happy to take those here. In terms of what to do next with us, as a customer, our customer account teams are motivated to help you to think through the best way to use the AWS Marketplace if you need to find software, if you need to find professional services, if there are AI/ML models that can help you to leverage and unlock the value of your data. So thousands of partner solutions available, talking with your account team, with your partner development team. They are here for you to help you along that journey, just as they've done with Lionsgate.
I just want to say, by the way, that they have been a great partner for us. And candidly, they want to see us be successful. And it's great to see the investment that they're doing, not only on the financial support side, but also the people side as well. Really bringing expertise to the table that we needed, and it's been a great partnership on that side as well. So we really appreciate that, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, happy to open up for questions from the audience if there are any.
A lot of fun.
Okay, excellent.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, well, you mentioned Mad Men. That was going to be my curveball. Hunger Games is up there.
It is.
Is Glengarry Glen Ross Lionsgate?
It is.
Hey, all right.
Hey, listen, throw a little bit of Res Dogs in there as well. So.
Excellent. Well, working for a company that tells really great, compelling stories, you told a really great and compelling story here today. I want to thank everyone for being with us to listen, to learn. Happy to spend a few minutes afterward. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody.